now that I have the cube created, I want to duplicate it and position it correctly. First, let's position it where it should be. So one thing that will help here is I'm going to go back under my grid display control, select that option, and I'm going to change the number of subdivisions to 2. Now see, when I did that, the advantage right now is now each one of these 16 unit cubes has a center point, that point right there. So I'm going to hold down the X key. Notice how the square changes to a circle, and you see this icon up here, it lights up, snap to grid. So as I move my cube now, it will snap to any grid intersection it comes to. And if I change my shading here to X-ray, you can see now that that cube has snapped, has snapped to the center point. Okay, and let's do the same thing over here. Alright, so now I've got my cube snapped. And one thing we noticed too is, that's great for the front view, but from the side view here, things are a little awkward. This is the cube's right in the middle. And from the drawing exercise you did, you know that the general rule from the Hale system is that the cube, or the anterior to posterior width of the rib cage is about 1.5 cubes. So I'm going to unlock my image layer for a second, click on that lateral view, and move it so that it sits with its posterior margin for the ribs, not the spinous process of the vertebrae, but for the ribs. And that gives me exactly 1/2 distance up here to get to the front. Okay, so I'm going to go back and lock this now, or change it to the reference. So now I have a cube, and it's positioned correctly, and the images are positioned relative to it. So I'm going to go under the edit menu and say duplicate. I could also say, you see there, Command D. Now sometimes it's hard to keep track of what you've done with these duplicating. So one of the best tools is this window that's called an outliner. And what it does is it shows you everything that's in your scene. So because that first cube is there, and there's the duplicate we made, now I could use the X from the front view and just slide it over. Now I have the 2 cubes, and I'm guaranteed, because I was using this snap to grid, that they're touching perfectly. You can't, it's not like 2D software where you can zoom in real close. There are no pixels. You have to use snapping devices to make sure that you have absolute accurate positioning. Okay, and I can go over into this outliner, double click if I want, and label this like upper left cube, upper right cube, so I can keep track of that. And then I could take the 2 of them. Again, I held down the shift key, and then if I said duplicate and held down the X key, I could move that pair of duplicates. And you notice what the software has done is it's changed upper left and upper right. It's put the number 1 there. So I'm going to just change that back to lower. And this is not something I'm just going to encourage you to do. This is something I'm going to insist that you do, that you label your objects in the outliner, because otherwise you're going to lose track of what's going on. So now I have the 4 of them, And it would be nice if I could somehow make them all duplicate and then scale them simultaneously as well to get the next set of half cubes, if you will, I need for this section here. So we'll do that in the next tape.